Hello, hello. Welcome to the Product Marketing Show. I'm your host, Trish. And today with me have Axel Kirstetter.
Rish, great to be
Okay,
here. Thank you so much for having me.
pretty good, Axel. This show is mostly about how to get your product marketing projects get going faster. And today we're going to talk about something which we have never done in the previous episodes. Product launch versus product release. I mean, this is one of the most common questions I get. Hey, what should be celebrated with like pomp and what should be just like an email newsletter? But before we jump in there, Axel, can you give us a brief intro about how to get into product marketing? Because you seem to have done even like early stage startups to publicly listed companies within marketing and product marketing. Tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's great. Indeed, I've been around the block for a while, always with a sort of product marketing angle. I always, reference my very first entry into the world of subscription as 2002, when I started to work for a company who basically shared some of their databases to car clients. And they did that on a quarterly incremental update. And so I've been in the subscription space since 2002, and touched on so many different things, which I guess over the last sort of 5, 6 years are now summarized as this term product marketing. Definitely more on the B2B side, but smaller startups, mid-sized companies, and right now I'm with Guidewire, responsible there for the product marketing team, which is a super exciting role, super exciting industry. It's insurance, core insurance. So basically, I sort of always explain it to my friends as combining CRM and ERP for the insurance sector, how to create a policy, insurance policy, how to administer it, how to manage the claims off the back end of it. And when I say exciting, it probably doesn't sound very exciting to a lot of people, but the fun of sort of being in a vertical SaaS environment to me is super exciting. And that's really my background over the last couple of years.
Awesome, awesome. Let's get the ball rolling. So, one of the most popular, probably it's also confusion when people talk about feature launch and product release, or is it major, is it like big thing? Can you share about how do you classify product releases and product launch? Before we jump in there, brief give a shout out to our sponsors, Content Beta, a full stack creative team on subscription for software companies. Create product marketing projects today and get delivery tomorrow.
Yeah, so first thing is, to me, there's a difference between a release and a launch, right? So the release is really the availability of functioning code, and it's not just the code, but with a UI, but basically of a product that is now consumable. That is very different to a launch, which I define as the celebration of commercial momentum. And so you can explain the entire world in the examples of a car. A car, so that's the release, at some point becomes available in terms of it is now ready. But to launch it, you need to train the sales team, you need to send out client invites, you need to make sure that someone is going to be coming to a launch event or whatever you decide to do. So one thing is the engineering completion of a valuable product offering, whatever it is. Another one is the push to the external world to consume that particular product. So celebration of commercial momentum. And then the other part of the question you asked is sort of that distinction between what's a product, what's a feature, right? And this is where product tiering comes into it. Not all things are of equal value. And we can talk about, what is more valuable, less valuable, but essentially some of the bigger products, some of the bigger stuff, realistically speaking, only comes out every sort of 18 months if you're lucky. Those are the genuinely new entry into the market, net new product, net new users. They warrant an investment in terms of marketing dollars. You got to create awareness, you got to create pipeline, you got to bring your sales organizations together. Whereas a feature is just an element of a product. And the way I think about it is sort of in two ways. One is impact on customers. And so, as a product marketer, you have to think numbers to the extent where possible. But impact on customer is translated as, does the average ticket price increase? On the revenue side, on the cost side, does the average margin per customer increase? And depending on how big or how small that impact is, it's a bigger feature or it's less of a feature. Combine that with market impact. And again, market impact, quantifying it is really simple. Does it increase your total addressable market space? If you currently are in a TAM of, 100 million, and suddenly you are adding a new feature or a new product that will expand your total addressable market by, whatever, say magnitude's 100 million, that's a big deal. And so combine those two, impact on customer, impact on market, a 2x2 quadrant. You can then work out, more important, less important. And I understand that not all products you can always quantify it to that extent, and sometimes it's a bit of a guesswork what makes the difference. But that's kind of the exercise here as well. It's not all scientific. The word marketing isn't product marketing, and so you do have to play a little bit with some of the nuances in terms of ultimate impact.
So going back to that, your metric where you say what is the impact on the customer and the market. So basically you got to define that what will, beyond what level is like big impact, or probably you could classify that as a product. Is that right?
Yeah, and so look, if should have thought of a specific example coming into this, but essentially, if you're going to launch, again, thinking of cars, if you're currently a gas diesel car manufacturer and you're launching now an electric vehicle, that's a big deal. So it's a new product. Arguably, it's a similar product, but certainly you're entering in a net new market. The reason I'm calling it a new product is because you're also acquiring new type of customers, more environmentally conscious, as opposed to just sort of the leisurely drivers, the safety-oriented drivers. You're now acquiring a customer base that is environmentally conscious. In addition to which, electric vehicle type of market. That's a big deal. Now, when you look at within the electric vehicle market, you can think of, okay, how powerful is the battery? Does the battery get me to do 400K? Does it get me to do 600K? KM, kilometers, miles, whatever, replace your definition, that's fine. If it is more of a sort of 600 km, that sort of implies that it can be used for slightly longer distances. And so now you have a different market that you're addressing. If your starting point is only the sort of 400K, and then you go to 600K, suddenly you're changing that's a feature. That's a feature of an electronic vehicle, but it does expand a little bit your addressable audience. So that's kind of how you need to think through what is a feature versus what is a product. A product is a bit more meaningful, a bit more comprehensive, and a feature is a little bit of a sort of add-on, a little bit of extra, and contributing factor to the overall product success. It allows you to maybe fend off a rival. Differences between one company and another, saying, hey, we have this feature, they don't. Great. Over time, you catch up. New feature, inform your customers, especially. Prospects kind of expect that. And it's kind of how you can distinguish the path between, is it a feature to a product or is it a net new product?
Understood. So let's say we've crossed the line where we understand what is a feature, what's a product. Now, how communicating that to market is different in both the case? Absolutely.
Again, it comes back down to how important is it. So my background more on the B2B side, but on the B2B side, you do typically things like write a white paper, have a blog, have a data sheet update, present to the sales team, and that is all effort. That effort is warranted if it is a bigger deal. If it is a smaller deal, maybe you just do a community update. You just put a little blog post out there, community update. Quite often, a lot of early on companies, they end up sort of including a mention in the customer newsletter of saying, hey, we have something new coming out, and you track things like how many people clicked on it, how many have clicked through it and read the piece of content, which is all good and great. But if it were something a little bit bigger, you wouldn't just have one single blog or one single mention in the news article. You would, train your sales team on it. You would make sure that you have existing customers that reference the product, so you can create customer wins, case studies out of that, share it in social, more effort. as opposed to a more effort, meaning bigger impact, as opposed to sort of a smaller feature that has lesser impact. And this is also where, interesting discussions always between product management and product marketing. Product management needs to articulate two things. What is it? And why did we build it? So why is really the summary statement is how impactful is this on our audience, so that product marketing can then weigh up, work out, yeah, it is a bigger deal, or you know what, this is sort of bread and butter. This doesn't really move the needle, it is about things like, did we win a lot of stuff? Are we now plugging a gap on losses? Are we addressing sort of customer satisfaction, and hence retention ends up becoming impacted? And that's kind of how one needs to work out the value of what is being produced, and then you can map your activities accordingly.
Understood. Let's talk more about product launch. So for a successful launch, I mean, you would have done lots of it over your experience. What are the successful components of like a launch strategy?
Yeah, and I think it's easier to talk about it at a sort of more product level, so the more meaningful, impactful stuff, just because it's broader rather than just a single element. But look, got to have a launch team. So as much as you are doing the product launch, but got to talk to your sales team, got to talk to your customer success folks, finance if it's about budgeting, enablement, etc. So have a genuine team that is on the table. When it comes to the actual launch, so the party launch is always, hey, something big's happening. But as part of that, I think good launch always has a pre-launch element, where just like in movies, you have coming up, to be seen soon, coming out in a couple of months' time. Similarly, for a product launch, 2-4 weeks beforehand, something big is coming. I like it to be meaningful, so not just, hey, come back in 2 weeks' time, but some kind of pre-announcement. We are developing something in AI, so you know a little bit what's coming, and you build up the noise over time. That's sort of another biggie to me. Again, on the bigger products, have a party, get people together. It's again that notion of celebration, of momentum. A celebration is people in a room celebrating, toasting champagne if you drink, or whatever other sparkling thing that you want to have. That in itself allows you to recreate social posts. Look, we're celebrating, something's happening, which gets that sort of flywheel momentum going. You're talking about yourself, people start talking about yourself, and that generates that highly prized secondary content pieces and coverage that you're always looking for. To me, the other element is also especially around creating urgency. So, one thing is, hey, we're here. Another thing is, we're here and you need to buy this now. So I always like to work the pricing lever, promotion, discount, or something available in the earlier days of a product launch to create that urgency, not just, hey, it's new, but also it's new and you need to have this now. A lot of people on sort of book publishing stuff, they'll tell you the first 100 people get a discount or what have you. These sort of early adopters, early clients validate your functionality on the product side, get that adoption going, so you can say X users have used it in the first 3-4 months, and it's that social reference, that proof point that you can utilize for the laggards. People are hopefully familiar with the crossing the chasm, where you have sort of the earlier users of a tool who have a sort of different mindset to the laggards, to the later on. But you really need to focus and make the most of those early adopters so that you get that flywheel of interest going, work out product functionality, what works, message popularity, what are people into, segmentation over time. So having that is really a super important aspect. And then another, I'm sorry, were you going to ask a question?
No. So I said you spoke about team, you spoke about pre-launch, like a teaser, like a pre-launch kind of creating a buzz. You spoke about creating urgency. Who owns all this stuff in an org?
It's, look, a team makes the dream come true, right? Teamwork makes a dream come true. there's always a lead and a support. I think product marketing's role is orchestrating a lot of this. Ideally, you have because it becomes a project management issue, you have a project manager, a launch manager that can really drum this through. We have it at Guidewire, a program management office, because it's impactful on many different areas. One thing that, as you get to the motions of launching products, one other element that comes into it as well, it's less about the features and functionality, it's more about the brand impact. It moves from being a product story to becoming a brand story. Basically, think of Apple. Do you really care about iPhone 14 to 15 and what exactly does iPhone 15 have? Quite often what you care more about is the people lining up outside of the Apple store just wanting to grab whatever that latest is, because it's more about the brand keeps innovating, keeps reinvigorating itself. And you know that when it goes from 14 to 15 or whatever it's at some point, that's going to hit some of the electronic supermarkets and you can get the previous version at a discount. So it's that sort of momentum that starts happening. It's more of a brand exercise. Is someone exactly going to check, oh, now it has a bigger camera and longer battery and it goes from 28 hours to 29 hours, or who cares? It's really more Apple, the brand, and sort of the reinvigorating of that innovation that is something that they're focusing on. And so back to your question, ideally you have someone that orchestrates it for you. If not, unfortunately, sits with product marketing. And then again, you still have all your other work to do of sales enablement, competitive intelligence, monitoring of what the sales activity is up to, and. So the investment you can make is probably a little bit less. But look, demand generation, corporate communication, PR, they need to know from product marketing what's happening. What are we doing? Why are we launching this? What's the impact? What's the opportunity? And so forth. So you do have to work with those others one way or another. And hence, the statement of it's a group, it's a team that needs to help out and needs to participate. I also believe strongly in having an executive sponsor. Depending on the size of the company, maybe you can pick the CEO so that there's really attention on the issue. Otherwise, have another person sitting on the executive leadership team that can say, "Yep, I'm giving you the executive supervision," and supervision is the wrong word, but the executive visibility that is needed in order to move the initiative forward.
Interesting. I'd like to talk more about the product story and the brand story. I really liked how you put up like Apple in that perspective. So is it safe to say that when you do a feature release, you are trying to build on your product story, but when you're doing a product release, you're really trying to build on your brand story? Is it safe to say?
I think that's a very accurate description. Early on when I used the sort of car example, I mean, think about it. When you go from having a diesel gas-powered car to now an electric vehicle, is that a product extension, or are you trying to reinvent, or not reinvent, but extend the perception of who you are as a manufacturer? In the sort of B2B space, one thing that I've always found interesting is how oil and gas companies are reinventing themselves as energy companies. And so, they have wind farms and solar, and it's like, well, wait a second, are you an energy company? Are you oil and gas? Because it's that sort of that awkwardness of you're still in the fossil fuels, but you're also trying to get out to go into those newer areas. And so is that now a product extension, or is it a brand extension? And let's face it, producing of renewables is much more expensive than fossil at this point. So it's hard to argue we're inventing a new product. A big reason why these companies are going into the renewables is because they need to do make themselves being seen as a modern, not just dirty fuels provider, but energy company. And I think similarly within tech, depending on, is this sort of an extension piece or is it really just a net new product, it's more aimed at the brand. I mean, think about AI nowadays. Every company needs to add, forget .com, it's .ai. If you want to be taken serious, it's contentbeta.ai, and that's kind of do you have an AI product? Who knows? Who cares? It's more about we're playing the game of the brand reinvention. So that's kind of what it's all about.
Wow. Now going back to the feature release, or probably even product launch, what are the top 2 or 3 things which you see is people are getting it wrong, or probably you see a lot of people making mistakes, or probably even you would have learned in your past experience?
Yeah, that's a good one, because it's easy to talk about everything that works, but what is not working. One of my pet peeves is meaningless copy. So, the positioning, messaging, and then you get to the copy point, and then you end up with, we are the most secure, value-oriented, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, you should have who's it aimed at, which category of an offering is it, and how do you differentiate? And it's tough to get this in a sort of copy, in a tight package. But I've seen a lot of advertising where you sort of throw out something of which is aimed at someone, but you don't say who it's aimed at. And like, if you go to LinkedIn, how do you know that's aimed at you? You're just saying, welcome to the party. Well, welcome to the party of dentists. Well, I'm a dentist. I'm interested. And so people always forget that you need to, who's it aimed at? What's the category? And how you're different from other sort of perceived ones. The second element, glitz, glamour. It's fantastic to have the flashy cameras on you and big smiles, but ultimately, a launch is supposed to have some kind of a business impact. And it's nice to focus on the sort of leading metrics of, email open rates and social views. But 6-12 months on, how much money did this generate? Did it actually impact the margins that you're trying to achieve? Did you did the units sell? Because what is the point talking about how many social posts you've had if ultimately no one's buying the stuff? So my other pet peeve is really yes, launch big, beautiful, big bang, but review the impact on the business. Is it moving the needle? That's ultimately what the launch should be about as well.
One question which I get quite frequently, and probably this will be my last question, is in this environment, not a lot of budgets are chasing marketing teams. How do you do those launches in a more cost-effective, probably affordable way?
Yeah, that's another good one. Social is a really, really powerful tool, but you can't just jump into it and say, hey, let me run a social campaign. And I think a big buzzword or a concept nowadays, actually, it's something almost like you're doing right now, right? Which is, or you have been doing, it's building out an audience over time. And at some point, an audience means people listen to you, they think what you have to say is interesting, and at some point, when you get to the point of having something bigger to do, all you need to do is activate that audience, which is relatively cheap. Think about it. If you have, 10,000 subscribers, and then, I talked earlier about the sort of why now, you give an incentive to those 10,000 subscribers. Hey, post on the LinkedIn and say, give me the discount code for the first 100 people. And if the discount code, whatever, is $10 or 100, whatever you have, that's relatively cheap compared to other forms of paid media where the user acquisition is sort of, $600 plus. And that's just acquiring. You haven't converted them yet. And so really think about pre-launching, right? If you're going to have a launch in 6 months, build your audience now, because in 6 months' time, you can activate that audience. That would be my sort of biggest tip around how you can reduce the cost of having that launch in the first place.
Super interesting. I have one question, another question which I just missed it. A lot of times, it's probably true even for large companies and small companies, is there is like a gap between product management and product marketing, right? And probably product management is pretty much top on the product, but maybe they communicate less or more with the product marketing team. And so what are your, in the past, how have you resolved that? Because how can they work together to get better results?
Yeah, look, let me start off by saying for the product managers who listen to this, I understand the pain. or product management quite often is measured on the release volume. Just like product marketing is measured on sort of content volume, product management is measured on how much stuff ships. Nobody's measured on impact, and as you grow as a product organization, ultimately you move towards that impact side of things as well, of how much sales and so forth. That being said, my empathy is made my empathy statement. I think depending on how a product management team is organized, I would, so engineering, product management, UX, typically sort of forming a squad of vested parties. Please invite your product marketer to listen in, to participate. Quite often, these are meaningless sort of Scrum prioritization discussions, but there's always that snippet in a 45-minute conversation that comes up where someone, the UX person, let's say, is going to say, yeah, we had a discovery call with someone, and for some reason they said this, and as a product marketer, this is brilliant, and write it down as sort of a early user feedback that comes showtime, you can turn into a interesting concept, interesting asset. So the biggest way to really facilitate that relationship is by inviting product marketers to the table where things get discussed. And then there needs to be a handshake between product management, product marketing, to say, yes, I'm now handing over not the reign as such, but the sort of push from product management, let's build something, to product marketing, let's promote something. This is sort of where sometimes product managers get too involved in an area that's not their expertise, and it will be preferable to just trust your partner on the other side to say, hey, I did my bit, this is the best that we could come up with in terms of feature richness, product completeness in the time frame we're given. Boom, off you go. And so that the product marketer has a lead way on things like, how do we call this stuff, how do we message against it, what channel or what activation channel is best, which ultimately is a decision that the sort of marketing hat needs to carry as part of the product management marketing relationship.
Super exciting, Axel. Thank you so much for taking your time. If our listeners would like to learn more about you or get in touch with you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn, Axel Ki, so AXLKI. Name's actually Axel, AXEL, but that wasn't available back when I set that up. So it's AXLKI, 5 letters.
Super duper. I'll just include that link in the podcast show notes.
Please do.
But thank you so much for taking our time and sharing your insights. I wish we could record another episode where we talk about your journey from product marketing for like startups to listed companies. Maybe we'll schedule that soon.
I think one of the so thank you for your time, really appreciate it. And I agree, one of the most interesting things that I always fascinate me when I interview people, when I mentor people, is like the journey. It's not always the destination. How did you land in product marketing? But what motivates you? How do you bring things together from your past experiences? And yeah, would love to have a follow-up with you whenever we're ready and it suits us.
Super duper. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Axel.
Thanks, Rish. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.